Okay. All right. So as many of you already know, since you're here, we have our guest speaker today, Jack Sagin. As I was saying before, he just got out of prison a year ago yesterday. He served 34 years in prison in California for a crime that he did not commit based on snitch testimony. And so since we're in that part of the class, I figured it was a perfect place for him to come in and just tell what happened, tell his story, and just really everything. And as usual, you can write questions and things in the chat. I'll read it to Jack in case he's not looking at it, which is completely fine. So just go ahead and tell us your story.
Okay. Well, back in 1985, I was at the wharf in Monterey. Excuse me. And a bunch of cops came there. For what reason, I don't know, but there was a bunch of them that came. And this one lieutenant came straight to me and he said, "Jack Sagin, right?" And I said, "Yeah, that's me." And he told me right then, he said, "Do you know a guy named Russ?" And I said, "Russ, who's this?" He says, "A guy named Russ Wilder. He's kind of a nutty dude." And I said, "No, I don't know the guy." And he said, "Well, we're looking for him because we think he killed his girlfriend, which was Paula DeRocher." And I said, "No, I don't know him." And I took off. Well, soon after that, I was arrested and put in jail, unrelated to the murder. I was in jail on another whole different thing. And as I was in jail, there were some guys in there, that were gang members and so on and so forth. And I was in this pod with, I think it was like 15 guys. Anyway, I told this story to one of the guys. He went by Beto. His name was Robert Castaneda. And we were in there, you're in jail, you run out of things to talk about. So, I said, "Hey man, pick up on this. You won't believe it." And I told him the story. I said, "Man, this cop came right up to me, knew my name, man, asked me if I knew, like I was his personal snitch." And I told this guy, "No, he's looking for a guy named Russell Wilder who supposedly had killed his girlfriend, they think." So he said, "Oh, really?" That guy, little did I know, that guy was an informant, had been a long time informant in Old Folsom Prison, in San Quentin Prison. And he was an informant on the streets and in the free world. And but nobody knew about this guy. Nobody was aware of him. And he was in the gang he was in, what's called the Texas Syndicate. It's a TS. So the TS, he was in that gang. So I'm telling the story without even thinking about, what is he going to do with that story? I mean, there ain't nothing, And anyway, he leaves the cell. He tells the sheriff to call Monterey Police Department and tell them that he has information on me. So they come out there, excuse me. They come out there and he tells them the story, but guess what? He adds me in the story. He said, "Jack and Wilder and Russell." And now I'm in the story and they're looking for Russell, which was he left to North Carolina, and everything looked really good because I couldn't represent myself. I mean, I couldn't tell my story and on the stand or anything in trial because, of my past. I had a bad past. I'll admit it. I was an addict. I have been an addict, man, since I was 14 years old. And that was in 1959. I'm 75 now, and I used dope for over 50 years. So I gave it up 13 years ago. I haven't touched anything, cigarettes, liquor, or heroin. Heroin was a drug of choice. That's the only thing I ever took. And that was enough. But anyway, getting back to the story is the cops come and they tell me that they're going to file murder charges on me. I said, you're crazy. For what? What murder? And they said the murder of Paula DeRocher. They said they had a witness that I confessed this to. And so anyway, this guy, I don't know how, keep in mind, I didn't know how this woman was killed, whether she was shot, whether she was strangled, whether she was by knife. I had no idea, but he did. When the cops came and got him and talked to him about me involved in this murder, somehow, some way, I can't blame him because I can't prove it, but he came up with one of the stab wounds, which was to the heart. He knew that stab wound. And so anyway, I go to trial and I'm convicted. I get life without the possibility, and I'm on my way to prison. So while I'm in prison, but keep in mind, while I was in prison, I was writing my congressman, who was Leon Panetta at the time. And I was writing him, asking for his help because Monterey County framed me. I was writing the Attorney General, who was Vandy Camp at that time. And I was writing him saying, you know what, man, I'm innocent. I didn't commit this crime. But anyway, there was two of them, informants. There was another one that came. I was in the holding cell with about 8 other guys. And this is after Castaneda. I was in a holding cell going to trial. I mean, going to a hearing in Monterey County. Well, here comes this guy. He comes in and he sits down on the bench, and I'm playing pinochle with 4 dudes running my mouth about this same story to them. I'm telling them, man, you wouldn't believe this, man. And anyway, this guy comes up. They personally, he came in after us, and then they grabbed him out of the cell, and what they were doing was establishing the fact that he was with me. And this guy told the same story as Castaneda, said that I was involved in the murder, me and Weidler, and he knew about the stab wound, one stab. That was it. And so anyway, I get life without, and I go to prison. I get to prison and I start going crazy, with trying to find my way out of there. And so I didn't know nothing about the law, nothing. And you know what? I got me a job in the law library. And when I got in there, I started seeing guys who were really good at the law, jailhouse lawyers. And I talked to them. I got a job in there. My sister sent me the money to get a typewriter, and I didn't need, I'm still typing with one finger, but I mean, I got that and I got the help and I started going into my case. Well, a lot of people were interested in my case, like Ted Rorlick from the Los Angeles Times newspaper. He was really interested in my story, and I couldn't understand why, because we're like 500 miles apart. I'm all the way up north. He's all the way down south. So anyway, he calls the prison and asks them to ask me to call him. And he wanted to talk to me. So I talked to him and he said, I'd like to come and bring a recorder and a video. And I said, well, come on. And I said, I'll do it. So he said, I can't believe that them 2 guys, that you confessed to them 2 guys with your background. He said, it don't jive up, So anyway, he comes, we talk, and I signed some papers for him, giving him the authorization to investigate my case. So one of the informants was in Vacaville prison, dying of AIDS. He was also a gang member. His name was Luis Graciola. He was dying of AIDS and shooting dope. he was shooting dope and got the AIDS. And so anyway, he was dying. Well, the newspaper guy, Ted Rorlick, flew to Vacaville. He wanted to get a dying confession from this guy because the guy was going to die. But before Ted got there, they moved Graxiola from the prison and took him to an outside hospital, and he died shortly after that, like about a day or so, he died. And so Ted never got that. So Ted flew out to North Carolina, where Russell Wilder was. And he flew out there, and the guy confessed. The guy in my preliminary hearing on this murder, they put him on the stand, and he testified that I was never with him, don't know him, all this, never in a car with him, never talked to him about his girlfriend. It was his girlfriend a long time, not even really his girlfriend, but a long time before. Anyway, he got on the stand in the preliminary hearing and testified to that. Well, as things got hotter and I was bound over to Superior Court to go to trial, he changed everything. They went back to North Carolina, got him again, brought him, and told him, you know what, you're going to testify. Obviously, they told him to change his story. So when he went in my trial, he completely changed his story. He said, yeah, I drove Jack over there, and we parked way at the end of the street, and I went in there and borrowed $40 from Paula and came back out and split it with me. I don't know what the hell this guy's talking about. It's all crazy to me. And the cops obviously rolled him over. They threatened him with, you know what? You're going to go with Sagin to prison. We're going to convict both of you on murder. He's I'm having none of it, so he jumps on the bandwagon and he changes his story. So anyway, he died shortly after that. He died of cirrhosis of the liver. He was a drinker, an alcoholic. And anyway, he died. And I'm convicted, sitting in prison. And like I said, the newspaper guy, he's going all over investigating my case. And the only one that he didn't talk to, and he wanted to, was Castaneda. Because Castaneda was big time informant. He's been informing on murder cases. While he was waiting to go to trial on me, they moved him to Santa Cruz County Jail, put him in the thing there, and you won't believe it. He testified, he gave information and testified on 5 more cases there while he was waiting to testify in my case. And I'm fighting up and down with this attorney. If we talk about wrongful conviction and stuff like that, I got to tell you, wrongful conviction comes in many, many ways. And you know what? It can be an overzealous prosecutor who only the conviction means anything. Truth means nothing. The conviction moves up the ladder. So, you know what? And if you look at statistics, the majority of the people sitting in prison can't afford an attorney, and so they get these PDs. PDs are strapped. They don't have the money to actually represent you like they should. So, you're down one strike there, and most of them, I hate to say it, but most of them will deal you out the best deal they can get. Instead of, they're doing the courts a favor by not taking you to trial. So they get the better end of it, by getting used. The prison's full of guys that are doing 18 months, 2 years, 3 years. The prisons are just full with these guys. And why? Is because these lawyers are dealing them out. I bet you a good majority of them wasn't even involved in the crime, just apart, just with the people, never did anything. And you know what? They're sitting in prison, and you get that prison life under you. Well, the thing with that is you're not scared to go back. And then when you get out, you know, you're, excuse me, you're ex-convict or whatever you want to call him, ex-inmate. And he gets out there on the streets and, you know, he's ruffling his feathers there, you know, and that he's been in prison. And it's sorrowful because they end up going back. I mean, just one time after another, it's a revolving door, you know. And you know who creates this? Is law enforcement. I mean, and attorneys, and you know, wrongful convictions. The prisons are full of them, you know. And but anyway, I get to prison. I study law with these two guys. I'm learning how to do this stuff. It's killing me, but I'm just sucking up everything I can from these guys. How to shepherdize, you know, how to, you know, do a ducum texum, things that I've never heard of, you know, and knew nothing about that I could have used. Marsden hearings, stuff that I went, man, some of this stuff, because I had a paid attorney, but mine was given to me by the court because the two informants were represented by public defenders. So they had to give me a private attorney. So I had the private attorney, but I got to tell you, he didn't do his job. You know, I mean, just flat out, plain. You know, he didn't do his job. He didn't help me. You know, there was things in my case that would blow you away. I mean, it's just, you know, the housing records that every pod has from A to I, and then medical, and then the whole isolation. So they have a housing record on every pod, and every prisoner is on that pod. They're on there. Well, they came up with Graxiola being in the same pod with me. That was a damn lie. On September 30th, 1985, he was not in that pod. He said he was in that pod and housed right next to me in the cell next to me, and that I gave him my involvement in the Paula DeRocha murder. You know, this is what he says. And this is after the court, after the, what do you call it? So they established the fact again that he was next to me and I was talking, right? So I look at I was pretty well known, and I got the gang coordinator in the county jail. I said, man, this guy, he told me straight out. He said, Jack, that guy wasn't with you. And I said, man, well, why is he on the damn pod? Why is it? The guy that was there was named Rojas. They scratched Rojas with a pencil like that, and they wrote in under his name, Graxiola. And I said, that ain't right, man. I said, that guy was not here, man. He got no confession from me. And he wrote, his name is Rico Dyer, and he is the gang coordinator. And anybody that comes through that door in the county jail after booking has to go to him. And he will determine where you're going to live in that jail by reviewing you, you know, interviewing you, see who you are and all that. And so anyway, he writes me a declaration. I swear to God, he writes me a declaration saying Graxiola was not in CPOD on September 30th, 1985. And he signed it under penalty of perjury. So after I'm convicted, I got this information for a new trial, a whole new trial. I got this myself. I was fighting with my attorney to get the jail records, and he wasn't getting them before trial. And because I was telling him, this guy isn't here, man. And he wasn't listening to me. So anyway, I go to motions for new trial after I was convicted. So we got the evidence. I got the evidence, not the attorney. I got it. And I got all the jail records to show, you know, what officer was working. And they were so messed up because somehow somebody got in the records because Rico Dyer came to me. I said, Rico, I said, go up there wherever you keep the records at and look for September 30th, 1985, and you'll see you're right. That dude was not in here. He went up there and he came back to me and he goes, you know what, Sagin? There is no September 30th, 1985. He said, all the other dates are there. I said, that's what they did, man. They took the damn thing, the original, and destroyed it, or whatever they did with it. And they put this new one. And the new one had some cop's name, because what it does, you have to, the officer who does the housing pods, you know, he types them out and puts everybody's name. Well, he has to put his name on top and the date. And guess what? There was a cop's name on there, but I got the records where shows who worked on September 30th, 19, all cops on first watch, second watch, third watch. And guess what? This cop wasn't even working. They just put his name there. And I told the judge this on my motion for new trial. I said, Your Honor, I said, they're framing me with this. And this guy was never with me. And they had to have this guy because they had to have the corroboration to convict me. And that's, I mean, they couldn't just have Castaneda go up and say, oh, he stabbed him in the heart. You know, they needed Graxiola to come right after Castaneda and say, oh yeah, he told me that he stabbed her in the heart, you know. And both of them had the same story. But anyway, they doctored all the, and I went to my first appeal with the appeals attorney. They give you one round free. He looked at that, and that was his biggest argument in my case. He said, man, these records are screwed up, man. He said, this guy wasn't even working. How could he have typed out this pod list for C? And where's Rojas? The guy that was in there, his name was Rojas. And it said, Rojas, scratch, move to H pod. So we go to H pod, and guess what? There's no Rojas, you know? No Rojas. So Rojas was still in there, but they just put Graxiola's name on there just so he could say, oh, I was right next to him. I sat right there in the cell right next to him, you know. And, you know, he gave this big old testimony about, I gave him cigarette, you know, and coffee and, you know, all that crap. And I mean, that's just an example of them informants working with the police. I mean, you know, I can sit here and tell you, excuse me, I can sit here and tell you, you know what, them cops gave them the information. I know damn well they gave them the information. But how am I going to prove that? I mean, you know, I'm stuck. You know, I'm just stuck. And my whole thing was look at the paperwork. It speaks for itself. There's facts, you know, and even another cop, a black cop, got up there and he testified in my motions for new trial. He testified, he said, that's not the record. He said, we have to keep a record because we got to know where these prisoners are. And, you know, there's a lot of security involved in everybody that's in jail. And he got, and you know what? It didn't do me any good. And then Rico Dyer, who signed the declaration, he flipped the script. When we got in there, he gets on the stand and we're going to break this case wide open, right? And we're going to break it wide open. He gets on the stand and my attorney goes, did you book and house Louis Graziola? And he said, yeah. He said, but you know what? On my declaration I signed for you guys, he said, I think I got this mixed up. So you know what? I think he was in CPOD on 9/30/85. Then he moved to iPod. But actually he was in iPod all that time. And I could not believe that he signed that declaration. under penalty of perjury and then get on the stand. But that's how much power the district attorney, the cops, and law enforcement, they just stick together. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm sitting there going, man, this is crap, right? And so this black cop got up there on there, and he testified to who does the housing records, and it didn't match up to the guy that was signed, the sheriff that signed my housing records. He didn't even work, so he couldn't have done it. So he says, you know what? This is not the housing records. It's not. He says, there's no way possible. And you know what? Here's the judge's answer to this. That's interesting. Shit. That's what he told me. That's interesting. Yeah. Interesting my ass. I mean, do something about it. Look into it, and anyway, you know what? I blew a fuse, I had a Marsden hearing. They cleared the whole court out. A Marsden hearing is when a defendant complains about his representation or whatever. Well, the judge will clear out the whole court, including the attorney. The district attorney stays, and the sheriff obviously stays, the bailiff. So the judge asks me, what's wrong, Mr. Sagin? I'll tell him, you're what's wrong. I said, man, can't you? I said, my attorney ain't representing me correctly. These housing records are all crap. You know it. And he said, well, that could be. He said, but you know what? It's interesting. Interesting don't help me. He didn't look into it, so it couldn't have been too interesting to him, But it's like that. You're not only fighting with the informants, but you're fighting with law enforcement, including the judge. You're fighting with them, and there's just no way to go. You're stuck, once they turn on you, that's it. They have that much power. I think everybody knows that, no matter what you say, it would have to be blatant, I had witnesses that testified, not only my family, but I had witness outside my family testify. I was in San Jose on the weekend of that murder. I was in San Jose at my mother's house. One witness even got up on the stand and she said, yeah, I know he was there. She said, and the district attorney asked her, well, how do you remember him being there? She said, because he ate 4 eggs. I had 4 sunny-side eggs, and she said, he eats a lot, so she, so she really, huh?
We talked about how alibis are not necessarily very convincing, even if, especially if they're your family. And if a snitch goes up and testifies, then somehow they believe the snitch who has a criminal record, very likely, as opposed to your family, which likely you didn't, which is crazy.
That's exactly, man, you hit it on the head. Family members testifying for you is the worstest thing you can do, because the district attorney is going to get up there and say, what mother, what brother, what cousin don't want their relative out, or their son, or whoever, and that just sinks into a jury. And you know what? I just had a meeting with 4 attorneys because I'm going up for compensation hearing here soon. And we were talking, and I asked them if they would be willing to interview Beto Castaneda, because the last thing I got on Beto that I heard, he had cancer of the liver, so he was born in 55. So I don't know, that puts him what, 60 something. Anyway, I was hoping that I could get him, but Missy, Kelly, and them, right? And, they're sort of against talking to him because he's a real He's a real treacherous dude. You know, he's an opportunist. He does nothing for nothing. And I'll tell you, when I did get an attorney to go talk to him when he was in protective custody in Phoenix, they moved him from Tucson because he got stabbed through the neck and in the back a couple of times. And they didn't kill him. They moved him to Phoenix, put him in protective custody. This attorney, his name is John Scartamaglia. John says, you know what? I'm going to talk to this dude. I said, great, man. You know, talk to him. Guess what? He tells John Scartamaglia, Castaneda tells him, look, I'll tell you who gave me the stab wound if you help me. That's Castaneda. He wanted John Scartamaglia because his mother and father had passed away. Well, they had a home and they had a bunch of other stuff. And what he needed was representation to make sure he got his part of whatever, right? Because he had 3 sisters and they were in control of everything. But he wanted to make sure that he got in there. So he tells John Scartamaglia, you know, tit for tat, you know, you represent me. And John told him, I can't do that, man. That's my client, Sagin. I represent him. Just tell me what cop it was. Well, we knew who it was. You know, we knew it was Kaiser and Jewel. We knew them 2 were doing it because they were going in and out of the county jail. One's a sheriff detective and the other is Monterey County Police Department. So anyway, man, you know, what am I going to do? I mean, you know, they got me and I can't, you know, I know Kaiser. I have paperwork on Kaiser, the sheriff, because prior to my case, prior to my trial coming up, Graxiola is testifying in another murder case. And that murder case was Dan Mull. And this was prior to my case. Dan Mull drowned a guy. They got in a fight. They were drinking and there was a puddle of water or something, man. And anyway, the guy drowned. So the guy that did it was Dan Mull. So anyway, I got this proof that Kaiser and Jewel, and I got the paperwork, everything, called Fort Ord Army Base to the detectives there for, I don't know what you call them, you know, they're not MPs, they gotta be some kind of, you know, agents. So anyway, I get them to call Fort Ord. They call Fort Ord. Fort Ord, two agents that are in control of this Mull case, federal murder case, because it happened on federal property. That's why they're involved. So they tell me and my attorney, they said, oh yeah, we got a call from Kaiser and Jewel. They said their snitch was in the county jail right now. They'll place him with Dan Mull and we'll get your confession. You hear me? And you know what? It's shit like that, that's outrageous. I mean, they're calling this guy, telling him my snitch is in there. I got one of my snitches in there, and I'll turn him loose. I'll put him with your guy. And the snitch, on an interview, the snitch brings that up, and he says, look, he said, I got the confession from Mull. He said, but they never came at me again, meaning the detectives. They never got back to me. He said, because 1, they made me an agent. 2, they didn't want to jeopardize the Jack Sagin murder trial coming up that I'm testifying in that one. So they left me alone not to say anything in the Dan Mull murder case, federal. And that's how Leon Panetta, my congressman, came involved, because it was a federal case. They were using this, and I was trying to get him to get nosy and look into this, right?
How did you ultimately get out? What was the evidence that was used, or what was that?
Well, the evidence that was used was DNA. DNA. And what happened was when DNA came out in 1988, I think it was, or 89. Anyway, man, I put pencil to paper and I started writing everybody. And I wrote Vandy Camp, the Attorney General. I said, send a representative down here of the courts and get my DNA. I want you to do my DNA. And he never did. You know, he didn't pay no attention to me. I threw my letter in the garbage, you know, but I tried to get them. I tried to get Monterey, the detectives, to do a test. You'll find out I did not kill this person. I had nothing to do with it, you know. And so anyway, you know, the years went by, 17 years went by, I fought it. And then in 2001, the Innocence Project became known. They just started in Northern California. And I wrote Barry Scheck in New York. Barry Scheck said I had a really good case. He recommended me to San Diego. I wrote San Diego, and I got him co-signing for me. And San Diego goes, no, you got to go to Northern California. They just opened the Innocence Project there. I think I was the first one on there. And anyway, they look at my stuff and they go, oh yeah, we're here. So they jump on, and it took them, you won't believe it, 17 more years. I did 17 on my own fighting. I've been to court. I mean, I even got appointed 4 lawyers, you know, and from Monterey. And so I was doing a good job, but I just could not get in the courtroom for evidentiary hearing. I could not get in there. But anyway, I went all the way to the Ninth Circuit. That's just one step from the United States Supreme Court. So I went to the Ninth Circuit. Ninth Circuit denied me after 6 months. So this Innocence Project comes up, and I'm begging, man, take my DNA. Well, they didn't have no evidence. You know, they didn't even know if evidence existed. You got to remember, 17 years that went by. So, you know, normally they throw that stuff away, you know, and unless you file a motion to the court for them to preserve the evidence. But they just on a hunch, they went down to Monterey, and the lawyers, 3 of them, they went down there. They requested all information granted by the court of the evidence of the murder. And there was a lot of evidence there. There was, you know, quite a bit. And there was towels wrapped around her leg. There was a robe that the guy punched her through a robe and hit her heart. And she was stabbed through the neck. She was stabbed on top of the head. I mean, it was just crazy, you know. And so anyway, they get all this, the pillow, the blood, there was a marijuana stick there, you know, and they get all this evidence. So this is hard to believe, but it's the truth. They get all the evidence, and they keep asking me, man, it's not going to come back you, is it? You know, come on, you know, because a lot of guys cry, and, you know, they're crying over nothing, you know. And I told them, I guarantee you're not going to find nothing of me on any of that stuff. I mean it. In that, you can do that whole apartment. I don't give a shit. There's not me in there. And so anyway, they tested it, and it came back not me. Everything, not me. They said I'm excluded from any DNA found in the crime scene, you know. And there was bloody towels and semen on. She wasn't. Let's get this straight. She wasn't raped or anything like that. None of that happened. And but there was semen and blood on this one towel that was wrapped on her leg. And guess who it was? It was one of her coworkers, you know, and they didn't even do a damn thing about it. When we got that evidence back, we went, man, there's your killer, right? They didn't even give a shit. They said, we got the right guy. we got Sagin. That's who we want, you know. So anyway, what had happened was, what took so long, it took from 2001 to 2009 before the DNA was all completed. You know why? Every time I came back negative, somebody else would want to test and there'd go another year. You know, they have to go through the process, get the evidence. The evidence goes to the lab does their thing. And, you know, I'm not no priority in that lab, you know, they're just going to take their time, you know. And man, I'd go from Monterey cops to the attorney general, you know, and on and on. Everybody wants a test. Even Department of Corrections took a test. And I said, what the hell you want a test for? I'm in prison, you know. And they said, well, you know, we got to take it. So they took the test of me, had it. I came back, not me. So anyway, the evidence they found 5 guys. 4 of them was her co-worker. 3 of them was her co-workers. And one of them was not, but he was a boyfriend to her. She had a lot of dudes hanging around. She works, you know, and but anyway, there was one. We got the names of all the guys, the 4 guys, but the 5th guy, under her fingernails was blood and skin that they dug out of her nails. So obviously, you know, because her hands were cut, they were defense wounds. You know, she was grabbing the knife, you know, trying to stop him, and then probably grabbing his arm, scraping him, you know, and she had all this, but we could not find, we put him in the data bank, hoping that we'd get a hit, you know, and never got a hit. We can't find out who this guy is, and it's killing me because I want to know who it is because, well, the black guy, his blood and semen is on her legs. What the hell is his blood doing on there? When he testified in my trial, he testified along with these other guys that their DNA come. He testified that he went over there Saturday morning, and he called her before he went and said he was on his way to the drugstore to pick something up for his wife. And he said, I'm close by. Can I stop by? And she tells him, yeah, stop by. It's cool. So he goes there 10 o'clock in the morning. He stays until a little after 10:30, like about 20 to 11, 15 to 11. He stays and then he leaves. That's all. They just talked about, and supposedly they exchanged gifts. He went to Vegas and she went to Alaska, you know, with her kids. And she's got 2 grown kids. And anyway, nothing is mentioned about his blood. Well, in the trial, there was no such thing as DNA at that time, you know. But when we filed the writ, the lawyers, when we filed habeas, I filed one in '89. They filed after they got my case in 2001. They filed, and we come up with all this information on these dudes. You know, there's 4 guys. We got their DNA. But the one is obvious, man. There's something wrong here, man. His blood is on that body. His semen, why is his semen on it? They didn't have sex. You know, she didn't have sex because she was in the shower, showering. Her phone rang. There was none of these kind of phones, you know. And anyway, she goes, grabs her phone in the shower. She grabs her phone and it's her son, Paul. Paul says, hey, Mom, can you come? She said, look, I'm in the middle of the shower. She said, let me shower and I'll call you right back. Well, if she showered, man, you know, normally, I mean, anybody that showers, you know, you're going to clean your nails. I mean, soap is going to get in there. So anyway, she steps out of the shower and that's when she's killed. Somebody's waiting in there, and they kill her. And they killed her. So when we get the information about their DNA, the 4 guys' DNA and the 5th guy, but we got the 4 names. And that guy, you won't believe this, I swear to God, that guy changed his whole story from 1985, just a month after the murder. He was interviewed when the whole murder was fresh in his head, what he did, how he did it, and all that. And guess what? In my petition, my writ, they filed a response to us. Well, now he's saying, oh, I was running on the beach and I had my towel around my neck. Check this out. There's no shit. I'm not exaggerating, nothing. I'm running on the beach, and because her house was just a couple blocks from the beach. And he said, well, I got by her neighborhood, and I said, you know what the hell, I'll stop by there. You know, and he's got the towel around his neck. He's running because he wants to lose weight. This is what he says in this thing. So he goes to the door, knocks on the door, and she says, oh, surprise, you know. And he kicks his shoes off, you know, and goes in there because he's got sand, he says, you know, you're making a big deal of this. Well, he can't explain how the towel with his blood is on the body. Why would it be? Plus your semen, man.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going on here? You know what? You know, and you know what? I swear to God, Jenna, I'm not lying to you. It meant nothing to the police or the district attorney. It meant absolutely nothing. And so,
But eventually the DNA, your DNA not matching was enough to get you released.
yeah, I went to a court of appeals. Monterey denied me 3 times. They denied my lawyers 3 times. So, and I had evidentiary hearings, everything. And even the attorney general said Sagin's DNA is nowhere to be found, you know, and it's obvious, you know. So my lawyers went to Court of Appeals. They did oral arguments with 3 judges. One, Missy got up there, Melissa O'Connell. She got up there and she banged them judges, man. She went all out to explain to him. And them judges came back with their opinion saying, and I'm saying it word for word, they said, because the evidence, fingernail evidence in this case is so powerful that we believe that Sagin did not kill the victim. But they wouldn't say I was innocent. That's the part that kills me. You know, they said, if the jury had this information, surely at least one of them would have had a reasonable doubt. So they reversed my case, send me back to Monterey Superior Court. I go to court, my case goes there, not me. And they turn it over to the DA. The DA comes on TV saying, you know what, so many years have passed by, you know, because it was close to 35 then, you know, and so many years have passed by, 2 witnesses are dead, you know, the police are dead, you know, and on so on. So we can't retry him. So what we're going to do, he says, and you know, the Court of Appeals now, get this straight, they didn't say he was innocent, you know, and that's what they want to get across. And so anyway, he says, we choose not to retry him. So what we're doing is dismissing all charges. You know, after 34 years, you're going to do that to me? You know, dismiss all the charges and not say I'm innocent. And they wouldn't say I was innocent, because if they do, they got to compensate me. You know that.
Right, we've talked about that. So eventually the class will hear about compensation and stuff, but in California, it is difficult to get compensated.
Oh,
The trial judge does not say that you're factually innocent. And so Jack has not said that. And so he's facing, you know, an uphill battle here where he has to convince the commission
The
and
board.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah, gonna be a bit. But considering we've got just a few minutes left, I wanted to open it up for if anybody had any
Yeah.
questions for Jack.
Any questions at all? Talkative
I
group.
have a question. Uh, because you mentioned about the fingerprint that cleared you, could you
Yeah.
say it's a forensic negligence?
At the time, there was no such thing in 1985 as DNA.
Oh,
So
okay.
DNA was never used. What they did is, well, you'll probably find this funny, but all the evidence that they gathered out of the murder scene, they shipped to their laboratory,
Uh-huh.
and they put it in there and never had not one item tested, to
Oh.
find out what they could do back then in them days was comparison testers, because they found some hairs and they
Uh-huh.
could have tested it with my hair and to see if there's a comparison there. And they never did any of that.
Okay.
Fingernail evidence where the blood in the skin is, and we can't find out who is the person that's under her nails. All we know is the laboratory gave us this. They said it's a male individual, it's a man, and we put it in the database, hoping that somewhere along the line we'll get a hit and it will show up. Hey, we got a match. This fingernail evidence and this person. And
Oh,
it's
that
not
could be
happening.
the reason.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Well,
you.
here's my thing on that. When they released me, I had 3 lawyers sitting in there with the district attorney and all of them, just to show you how much, oh man, it tears me up. Anyway, they made statements to the district attorney, the police, all of them, and they made it really look good. They went, we're dropping all charges of Mr. Sagin and he's going to leave the prison very soon. Now, we want all the evidence you got. He told the Innocence Project, all the evidence that you got, we would like concerning the fingernail evidence, because what we want to do is we want to investigate and find out who this person is. And you know what? That was a big lie. They have done nothing.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
They won't do it, because if they do it and it comes back and they get a name and they approach this guy and ask him the questions and find out he's the real killer, what's going to happen? They got to compensate me for all them years.
Yeah, you're right.
They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. So, that's the evidence we got. It. We're going for a hearing, like Jenna says, and try to convince. I've been having a lot of meetings. My last meeting with these attorneys were for 4 hours, and you know what? We're trying to get enough evidence to convince the board to recommend compensation for me.
Do you know when your hearing is?
I'll send you a copy of the petition.
Yeah.
The petition should be done probably within a month. I got one more step to do, Jenna. They're going to do a mock trial. They're going to put me down, and two of the people are going to question me like the district attorney would question me. And this mock trial is for them to see what my answers would be, how I would come off, what my attitude is, because they'll get dirty with me, and they want to catch, because they said the district attorney, the attorney general, he's going to go all out to stop you. He's going to try to, even though it doesn't matter and it doesn't apply to the murder itself, they're going to bring your background and they're going to say, this guy isn't worth, $1,600,000. He's not worth it, So they're going to fight us like that. So the mock hearing that we're going to do, I hope I pass this little test, and I'm going to restrain myself from getting crazy. you know. I mean, you know, because I mean, you know, I'd be lying to you if I told you, you know what, I don't get upset, because I do get upset, because I think I sat there in prison for 34 years for not a damn thing I done. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And you know what? I sat there because two jailhouse informants, you know, that was it. Two jailhouse informants put me in prison for all them years, you know. And the district attorney, they don't want to do the right thing. If they truly meant what they said, I would have known by now what that name is, you know, because they're so advanced in that DNA now. All you got to do is just give them the DNA. They'll take it from there and they'll break down the process they do. You know, I've been watching that girl, CC Moore. I don't know if you ever watched her. She has a show that comes on on Tuesdays at ABC, and it's forensic science. Cops call her to do murders that they can't solve, and she's the hottest thing going in DNA. So, you know, I mean, I want her to do mine, but I can't. Right now, I'm in a struggle. I can't get, you won't believe it, I can't get the evidence out of the goddamn lab. It's in a lab that both of us agreed to put it in. I can't put, I said, why can't I have that evidence? It's my evidence, it's my life. And they go, the district attorney's is just as much his as it is yours. You know, he's stopping me from getting it, so I can't get it tested. So, hey, I'm in a fight with these people, man, you know, and I'm going to continue to fight until I prove my innocence. I want that judge to say, Jenna, and I'm not kidding you, I want that judge to look right at me and go, you know what? You're factually innocent, man. You're an innocent man, you know, and that's what I want. I want that right there, because I'll probably die before you get the money. It takes 5 years after you get it, you know. It takes up to 5 years, you know, to get the money, you know. So, you know, I'll probably be dead by then, you know, and hell, I'm surprised I lived this long. But the thing is that, you know, I'm not going to stop, you know. And my lawyers, thank God I got the Innocence Project. I mean, they're fantastic, you know, because I couldn't afford no lawyers, you know, I couldn't afford it, you know. So, any other questions?
Well, unfortunately, I have to go teach another class, but I will, if anybody wants to write me questions, I will send them to Jack, or maybe we can get him back for a few minutes sometime. But we really appreciate you sharing everything about your case. There's so many just unbelievably awful things that have happened to you with all these snitches and people changing their stories multiple times, and it's just horrendous. But we thank you so much for sharing with us, and we hope that that happens one day for you. Definitely.
Well,
Thank
you know
you.
what, I appreciate it. And you know what, any questions you want to send me, I'm willing to answer anything. You know, I don't hide nothing. This case is wide open to everybody. You know what I
Thank
mean?
you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So how do I get out of here?
Push end, it'll end. So I just wanted to say goodbye.
Oh, yeah. Goodbye. Hey, you know what, Jenna? If you don't mind, I'll text you.
Yeah, text me.
Okay? I'll text you and a little later on and
Yep.
talk to you. All right?
Bye.
I'm gonna get my puppy.
Oh, yeah.